So apologies, we got a slight delay in the start because the Commissioner and Chief Exec have been delayed in traffic. Okay, so we'll make a start. So welcome to this Police, Fire and Crime panel meeting. So item 1, apologies for non-attendance.
Through you, Chair, we have apologies for non-attendance from Councillor Zoe McGee of Northamptonshire Council and also from Catherine Whitehead, the Director Legal and Democratic at West Northamptonshire Council and Panel's Monitoring Officer.
Thank you. So item 2, so notifications of requests from members of the public to address the meeting.
Yes, through you, Chair, we have a request to address the meeting on item 9, the policing finance update from Mr. Craig Blacker. Mr. Blacker is not able to attend the meeting, and you've agreed that his question can be read out in his absence, which we'll do at the start of that agenda item.
Brilliant, thank you. So agenda item 3, declarations of interest. So if any panel members have any disclosable pecuniary interests or non-statutory disclosable interests, if you could make me aware. Okay. Apologies, I've lost my place here. 4, thank you. So, Chairman's announcements. Well, firstly, I'd like to welcome Ruben. Ruben is a work experience student from Kingsthorpe College. He's working with WNC this week with the finance team, and he's come along to see one of our panel meetings. So, welcome, Ruben. The next announcement, if you like. So, we will look at the complaints procedure, etc., when we get to item 7, because I think that's quite important with a view of the news that we've had flowing through today. With this being the last meeting of this year, so thank you for your time and attendance. And it's been, I think it would be fair to say, it's been quite a challenging year, not a year that we thought we would maybe face, but it is what it is. And you may recall that we wrote to the Minister for Crime, Policing and Fire, reference confirmation hearings and the appointment for interim appointments. And our approach has now been endorsed by the Minister. So, yeah, we were doing the right thing. So, thank you. So, so minutes for the previous panel meeting. Now, we've got some outstanding minutes, I think, haven't we, James? Which will be coming through under separate cover. So are you all happy with the minutes as detailed in the report?
Great.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move to, I don't think I've missed anything there, James.
Just to be absolutely clear to the panel, so there are 2 sets of minutes that are presented for agreement today for the public set and the private set for the confirmation hearing on the 30th of November. I take it that the agreement to their accuracy applies to both, just to be clear.
Apologies there for my imprecise process. Thank you, James. So moving to agenda item 6, work of the Youth Violence Intervention Unit in Northamptonshire. So this is a verbal item. I'm not sure, is the Commissioner presenting this or, yeah? Thank you. So across the Commissioner.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Before I introduce them, I think it's probably, given the news, it's appropriate. Shall I turn my thing? Sorry.
YouTube video.
Sorry about that. Before I introduce them, I think it's appropriate I make a statement given some of the news you've heard in the media this morning, and then I'll introduce them in a second. I think I need to give some context to what's there. So, in a meeting with a small group of firefighters, I was attempting to explain some of the criticism and opposition I had received for my ongoing support of Miss Watson as the next Chief Fire Officer. I used language I regretted at once. I apologised and referred myself to the monitoring officer that same day. The matter was dealt with immediately and a robust reflective meeting was held the next business day. I've said sorry to those directly affected, as well as passing my deepest apologies to all staff and particularly women. I understand the language used was totally unacceptable and I want to stress that this does not reflect my core values. I know you're going to, it may come up later, but I wanted to get that on the table before I introduce the youth violence. So, Mr. Chairman, I place a premium on innovation and collaboration, and my plan centres on preventing crime. I'm pleased to be able to present to the panel an excellent example of how collaborative working is helping to combat violence in our county and keeping young people out of the criminal justice system. Today, we are joined by Detective Liam O'Neill and Augusta Ryan, who is a senior member of my team leading on early intervention to provide you with a briefing of the work of the new Youth Violence Intervention Unit. This bold approach brings together 4 teams that work across boundaries with PCSO, my specialist youth team, youth justice workers and police officers, each bringing something unique to the challenge of tackling youth violence. Mr. Chairman, it's another example of how innovative partnership working in this county is helping to make a real difference in people's lives across our wonderful county. I will now pass over to Liam and Augusta to brief the panel on the detail of their important work. I don't know which one of you is going first.
I'll go first, yeah. Thank you.
So we just want to grab the microphones, but a very warm welcome to Augusta and Liam. I had the privilege to meet yesterday at the Youth Violence Intervention Unit in Brackmill, so it was a very interesting visit, and I think possibly we should organise something for the panel to visit that, because the work that's being done is, I think it's fair to say, is leading in the UK. So very, 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 very warm welcome to you this afternoon.
Thank you, yeah. My name's Liam O'Neill. I'm a Detective Inspector in Northampton Police. Is it on? Hold it.
No, you just press it.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, Liam O'Neill, a Detective Inspector in Northampton Police. I've been with this new department now for 4 months, and we've officially launched it internally and now externally. The work of the department is building on the success of SERVE. A lot of people know that as the community initiative to reduce violence. But we've had to kind of adapt and change the way we work as society changes, and less people wanted to engage with SERVE. So we've now developed the Youth Violence Intervention Unit. I'll talk you through it now with the next slide if you can. So at the heart of what we're doing is prevention, but we are trying to use data to help us target the right people at the right time. And what I mean by that is we've done some analysis on the 350 most serious offenders in Northamptonshire, and we're looking at when they became known and involved with police and other agencies, and we saw that there was a real jump in children from the ages of 12 to 16, and we thought the best way to try and help them from getting involved in serious crime is to intervene at an earlier age. So the focus is on under 18s, and that means we are aligning ourselves with other agencies to help support and divert children away from criminality. The focus is on prevention. A lot of policing is reactive, and what we don't want is we want to avoid people getting seriously injured. We want to avoid people getting involved in something that could end up in them getting hurt or even worse, killed. So we really want to prevent that from happening in the first place, because we understand the impact it has on the families and the community when that does happen. And the way we're doing that is a focus on appropriate interventions. Next slide. That's it. So we're using data analytics from our department called the Observatory, and they have taken data from the police and other partner agencies, and they're using that to help inform us on when and who to look at to try and intervene before something bad happens to them. So we're kind of doing that because we've only got a finite number of resources, and we want to make sure we get the best value for money and make sure that we target people before it becomes too late, and we can't just cast our net over everybody. So using the data will really help us. We've looked at under 18s because we can align our work with social care or the Children's Trust. We can align with the Youth Offending Service, health and education, so we can make the best out of partnership working. And then we've split the department into 4 different teams. So we've got a team of PCSOs who will be looking at children aged 8 to 12, and that is primarily going to be if they become involved in something. We can go and speak to them and their families. We can link in with schools and give inputs on knife crime and other areas to try and make them aware and keep them out of that world. We've got the old Serve Pathway team, which is Augusta's team here, and sure she can talk about that in a minute, but they are specialist ACE and early intervention workers, and they're not police officers. So we've got an independent team working with 13 to 17-year-olds to give them inputs to help keep them out of criminality, to set them on the right path. But they're working in the police station with us, which is good. A lot of young people didn't want to get involved in Serve. They didn't like working with police. They don't like working with professional agencies. But we still need to try and do something to keep them out of criminality. So we've got a team of police officers who are looking at ways to create engagement opportunities with those youths and get them support and divert them away from criminality. And then we've also got the Youth Offending Service officers. So they are statutorily obliged to work in the Youth Offending Service, but we're going to use them to help us look at best practice when children come to the attention of police and see if there's ways we can divert children away from criminality at an earlier stage and help kind of pass that learning across all the police officers. So they're the main main teams in the department. Go to the next slide. So the intervention, we're going to be utilising specialist ACE and EI workers, and I'll very quickly hand over to Augusta now, who can give you a bit more information on those.
So in terms of the early intervention and ACE workers, So in terms of the early intervention and ACE workers that work within the Youth Violence Intervention Unit, there's 5 of us in that unit that are funded and supported by the OPFCC. And our role is to engage and work with those 13 to 17-year-olds.
Is that the whole of the county?
Yes.
5?
Yeah.
Good grief.
But it's for intervention. So they'll hold a caseload of up to 10 young people each. And
the only team.
Sorry?
It's not the only team.
Oh,
no, it's one of the pathways within that, so the same pathway. Going back to what Liam was explaining, the reason that we've brought in ACE workers to work for interventions for this age group is historically they were sort of coming away because their interventions were run by police officers, and actually we don't have that police sort of officer status, and it breaks down those barriers, and we're able to sort of support them. But not only the young person, we work with the whole family holistically, which means we take on board what the parents' needs are, what changes we can make with parents, and it's that multi-agency approach. So we're working really closely with social workers, our youth offending colleagues, and our partners in education, so that we can make those positive change and achieve positive outcomes for those young people.
So yeah, if you could,
There's somebody asking a question.
Can I ask a question, Chairman?
Should we go through the presentation,
Okay.
then we'll bring any points and things up at the end if we're all happy with that, yeah? Lovely.
yeah, sorry, if you just go back a second. That's it. Yeah, just again to the OS workers. They work with children who've had a referral order through the courts, but they're also there to help us with the out-of-court disposals, so children who are eligible for a youth conditional caution or a youth caution, and we want to harness their skills and experience to help us inform other officers when they're dealing with children. And then we're also delivering inputs to families and schools about knife crime, problem solving and relationships as well.
So just before we go on to the next slide, in terms of inputs to families, one of the things that we've launched this year is we run a webinar to parents and carers, which is focused on child exploitation. It's run every month, it's run online, and it's free for parents, and our early intervention and ACE officers run those on a monthly basis. And that gives parents that early intervention, that education on what signs to look for in terms of child exploitation. We don't run it on our own. Again, partnership working, we run it with our RISE colleagues, which is the Reducing Incidents of Sexual Exploitation, and we also run it alongside our missing persons colleagues within the missing persons unit. So it's run as a collaboration between the three units. And like I say, the attendance, it was launched in February, and the attendance each month is growing now with parents that are attending. And like I say, it's free to anybody to attend. That helps with that.
Thank you. If you go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So, as I said, we're looking at ways to intervene with families and children before something bad happens. As I said, prevention is the heartbeat of what we're trying to do. So the early intervention team that we have, the PCSOs, they're looking to get involved with schools, providing the inputs on knife crime, speaking to families and help link up families who need support with social care, education and health. And then the disruption team, as I said, they're going to be looking at 13 to 7-year-olds who aren't engaging with professionals, who perhaps need that support and that guidance to help steer them away from criminality. What we want to do is try and move as many people away from criminal exploitation and the risk of becoming involved in something serious. And those officers doing that are a really good way for us to achieve that, whereas officers who are on general duties or aligned to other departments, they just don't have the time to invest in doing this sort of work. If you go on to the next slide, please. So I'll just give the mic over to Augusta again. This is just an example of one of the children who we've helped in the Youth Violence Intervention Unit.
Yeah, so I'll talk you through this young male. He was 15 years old, and the real reachable, teachable moment for us is if a young person comes into custody. This young person was brought into custody. He was arrested for possession with intent to supply Class A drugs. We went to visit him in custody. He agreed to take support. We visited him within 48 hours of coming out of custody, met with him and his parent. And what we established early on was he hadn't been in education for a whole year. He'd been permanently excluded and hadn't been given an education setting. And that's what led to his exploitation. That increased his risks. He had nothing to do Monday to Friday and was pretty much roaming, and he was an easy target for those exploiting. And also, in terms of policing, they recognised that he'd been exploited. So immediately a referral was put into the national referral mechanism, which is to protect young people in terms of exploitation. He was previously known for low-level antisocial behaviour, criminal damage and assault. So if we go on to the next slide. So we've jumped ahead a little bit there. So go to the next slide again. Thank you. So he agreed to work with us. He was allocated an early intervention and ACE support officer who worked with him and his parent. The immediate thing for us was to organise some education for him while we liaised with the local authority. We had funding in place from the OPFCC with Northampton Saints Foundation, and within a week of him being with us, he attended the Northampton Saints Foundation on their engagement programme and attended there 2 days a week. We also put in some mentoring with our mentoring partners that come and work within the Youth Violence Intervention Unit, a programme called Exodus. and he was given a mentor, and that he did for 12 weeks, and he met with them on a weekly basis. In addition to that, one of the other diversions that supports a young person was he agreed to wear a buddy tracker, and that was voluntary, and there's no curfews, there's no restrictions on it, and the reason the young person wanted to wear that was that actually it would help him to deter him away from those people that were exploiting him. And for him, he was able to say that was part of his release and his bail conditions, although it wasn't, but he was able to say that, and that was a deterrent for him to be left alone. He wore his buddy tracker, Mum supported us, and he was moved out of his home and moved to a completely different area with a family member in order to break those ties. And that's when we started to be able to do some one-to-one work with him. And some of the one-to-one work we did with him was around the risks of knife crime, because where we're talking drugs, we know that weapons comes in very close connection to it. Healthy friendships, relationships. He even got involved in some sexual health interventions because of his age. And one of the things that really was impactful for him is a tool that we use with some of our young people, is a road journey map. And we start back to his early childhood so that he can look at his ACEs and actually recognise how they've impacted him and how that often it's not their fault, and he was able to address some of the trauma in his life. And that also had a positive impact with Mum as well, because she was able to accept and draw a line under certain sort of incidents that had happened in their lives. Parent attended our exploitation webinar, which is what we spoke about, and that for her was more of a seal of the learning that she'd done with the ACE officer, because they talked through the risks and concerns. And through our intervention, we had some challenges, but we got there, and we worked with the local authority, and we secured him an education setting. He is now attending, able to do his GCSEs, and he's going to return to Northampton Saints Foundation post-16 on their HITS programme. So he's due to start there in September after he's finished his GCSEs. And the plan is that they will take him on as a mentor as well. So he's actually got potentially an apprenticeship after he's finished his HITS programme. And this is a young boy that had not been in education for a whole year. If we move on to the next slide, I think it's just the ending bit. Yeah, so he returned back to living with his parent. He no longer associates with the risky peers that he was. He's not being exploited. Since working with us, we've had no further crimes or intelligence to say that he's associating. And he hasn't come through, like I say, any other concerns. He also agreed to take place in our launch and actually took part in a vlog that we recently produced. So he's a real success story, but he's an example, which is what I wanted to bring to the table, because you can relate to that a little bit more. And he's doing really well. We send feedback out to parents and carers, and we've had some really positive feedback from his parent and from him himself. Just wanted to share that with you.
Thanks, Augusta. Yeah, so the Youth Violence Intervention Unit, there to prevent people from getting involved in stuff. And now we've got the serious violence duty that's come into play as well. It's one aspect that we're doing to support the county, and we're really hoping the partners can kind of come on board with this as well and do more stuff to help us intervene and prevent stuff from going on. And that's the end of the presentation, if there's any questions.
Brilliant. Well, that's really interesting. I think I'm really pleased that you could come along today and talk about Child X. As I say, I visited the unit yesterday, and we all must go over there and see what's going on. So it just goes to show, the work, with the right interventions at the right times. Look at the results. So first question from Councillor Baker.
I might have more than one, Chair, sorry. I'm the Cabinet Member for Children's Services for West Northampton, so obviously the boards that you've discussed already, I sit on all those boards, and actually I'm so thrilled that you've told us this story. Even if you've saved one child, that's amazing, but obviously we'd like to save loads of them. And my other question was if you've actually been in touch with any of our local area partnerships, because they're groups of people in the different areas that know what's happening in their area. And also we're working very hard to start what's the word? No, yeah, no. We're starting to have units in all of our areas. We're starting in Toaster first of all, not because that's the most crime-filled place, because it just happens to be a building we had empty. Family hubs, that's the word I'm looking for. Because early intervention is the secret to a success for all of these things, isn't it? And the fact that we've got young people who are excluded from school is a nightmare, because we just know they're going to be subject to all of these things that are out there that we don't want them involved in. So I'm really excited to hear about this brilliant piece of work. My last question is this spread throughout the whole of the district or just in Northampton?
No, it's a county resource. So we have a team based out of Northampton and a team based out of Kettering as well. It's to cover the whole county.
Thank you.
So, Andre.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points, and thank you for the presentation. I have said it's very refreshing to hear about success stories, isn't it? Particularly with young people and those that obviously we know will be leaders of tomorrow and governors of our own society. So it's really great to see some success stories there. And I'd like to just compliment you on the work that's been carried out by a very small team. I'd like to see some more investment going into that to try and get some better resources for you. Are you uniformed or not uniformed when you're approaching younger people effectively? I know there's obviously a family intervention as well.
Yeah, we're non-uniformed.
Great. Because
I think it creates a barrier for us. So I think being able to approach people is really important to us. So yeah, they don't wear uniform.
And just to add to that, so when a referral comes into the unit, the first person that picks up that referral is an early intervention and ACE officer, so it's a non-police officer. So we're the first people to make contact with the family, with the partners that are involved, whether it's education or social care, and then we go to see that young person. And then we take that young person if they want that support and we carry them forward. They don't meet another professional within our unit. It's that consistency, which is what the changes have seen within the unit.
That's excellent. To diffuse tensions in society, children themselves need to be reassured and need to be supported, don't they? And sometimes it's physically not possible within a family unit for different reasons. And I know we do an awful lot of work in all councils and in all areas. And it is one of those things you just have to keep on, don't you? In terms through a different avenue.
They can come from anywhere. A parent can self-refer. Our referrals come from police officers, they come from education, they come from social care, they come from YOS, they can come from all orgs. If we're talking about a majority, I would say the majority come from education, which is brilliant, and that's a lot of the prevention work that we do in schools. So we actively go out and speak to schools, so we get a lot from schools and we get a lot from our social care colleagues. And as well as our YOS partners. If they've got a young person that's working with them and they're coming towards the end of an order, but they still feel that risks are there, then we'll pick them up from there. And our police officers, in particular, respond to neighbourhood officers who will pick people up. And also, I talk about custody. So we sit on what's called a golden hour. So any young person that comes into custody, the unit is notified. And if it's a young person that we should be working with, that's where we will put a referral in ourselves for that young person.
Thank you. Last question from me, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Mental health is it's an enormous pressure, as we know, and has been over the last 3 years particularly, and those services just can't cope. How do you link in with CAMS, and how are you tackling that? Because I'm sure a lot of that has an overlap.
We're quite privileged in a way. It is a massive issue for us. We're privileged in a way that we have liaison and diversion in custody. And those colleagues have been really positive for us, because when we've got a young person within our unit and we can't get those services, we're able to lean on them to escalate it for us. So we've got that sort of inroad with those. But you are right, mental health is a huge issue for us. We've had a mental health crisis with a young person this week, for example, and they've helped to accelerate an appointment, and that's happening as we speak this afternoon. So we have got inroads, but it is very difficult for us.
Thank you for the help and clarity.
So, Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to roll all my questions into one so that you can answer them all at once. Hopefully this particular initiative is an ongoing situation, not just short term. And also is, how do you actually measure the success of the particular unit? And also, how many people or young people can you actually cope with at one time? And my very last question is, have you actually communicated with HMCTS, particularly with the youth courts? Because obviously sentencing magistrates should be aware of what sort of support that can be offered to these young people when actually they're sentenced.
So in terms of recognising what impact we've had, it's not a quick win for us. So that there has to be an element of long-term patience with that. So to look at how we've impacted on children, we can analyse when they become involved with the police with our data analytics team. So over time we can see a reduction in the amount of occurrences that they're coming known to us for. But in terms of the impact on crime figures, we won't see that for a while. But yeah, we are looking at ways we can measure that more succinctly. But in terms of the numbers, as I said to you, we've got limited resources, so we have to target, you know, people in the best possible way. In an ideal world, we'd have triple the amount of staff and we can target more young people, but we risk assess a lot of people. So every week we'll triage the children who we want to work with, and we'll give them a risk factor score. So we want to prioritise the high risk children, and then we can start working with any children under that. And then with our links to the Youth Offending Service, they will deal with the referral orders, and some of our officers help write reports for the courts in terms of how they've supported and worked with the serve pathway and what they've done to try and improve their situation as well.
I think, as I mentioned, is when it comes down to the youth courts for sentencing, it should be information that the magistrates have, so that when they actually pass the sentence, they actually know what support these particular youngsters will actually get from their particular sentence.
I can also add, because you mentioned a couple of bits there, the impact on how we measure. So Liam obviously measures it from a crime side, but we also measure it from actually how it's affected and changed their lives. So we send feedback forms, we measure it through that, and they're sent out automatically. We also risk assess. We use a risk factor matrix to ensure that their risks have reduced, and that's through an assessment document, but we also record, and Councillor Baker, you probably understand this language, signs of safety. So we record everything in signs of safety, so there we can measure the risks to measure positive outcomes. And in terms of figures, do you want to hear some figures when you talk about? No, you're all right, that's fine then.
Yeah.
Councillor Maxwell.
Do you know how many children are out of school at the moment?
Within the counties?
Within NNC to do with drugs and alcohol abuse.
I don't know the figure off the top of my head.
Well, it's 167. And of that, we have roughly 2,000 children who are on drugs and alcohol, and this age group actually starts at 7 years of age. Did you know that?
So, we're sharing, aren't we? Sharing is caring. So if we go back to the original slides and we talk about what we've changed within the unit, that's exactly why we now have a pathway for 8 to 12-year-olds, because what we recognise is that the needs of this county have changed, whereas historically we took from 12 years old. So that's why that early intervention pathway is now there, that the PCSOs manage, and that's already showing some real positive outcomes. And they could be children of siblings that are in our serve pathway, because they're an influence, and where we've got parental substance misuse and stuff, and sort of ACEs that will impact them. That's why that 8 to 12-year-old pathway is there.
I'll just jump in on that as well. The scope of the children involved is huge, and that's why I said to you we've got limited resources. So we're using the data that we've analysed to help us focus where we can target the best. And 8 to 12-year-olds is where we can feel we can add the biggest value. But you're right, there are children younger involved in this, and where there's a need to help them, we can do, but we've only got so many resources that we can apply to deal with the issues.
So the question is, do you actually work with schools, and then do you work with the children who aren't in school to actually, I don't know whether you are able to sort them, but obviously a lot of the children who are just been quoting bunk off school, basically, so they're not there, they're invisible, you know. So how do you actually work with them?
So a lot of this will come from the referrals from the schools. So if schools have concerns about the children, they will refer into the unit, and we will triage them on a weekly basis to see if they meet the criteria for us to go and work with them.
And also, in addition to that, and it is a separate project, but within the same department, we have 2 early intervention workers that work within our missing persons unit. So when we talk about missing, and they're missing from education, and they're reported missing by home, my team of ACE workers that work within missing work very closely, because we sit on the same floor with our youth violence intervention unit. So that's where the cross-reference happens. And this is what we talk about multi-agency and multi-departmental working. We're not working isolated. So those young people do come to our attention, and we will proactively go out looking for those referrals if we need to.
Probably come and talk to that missing person unit.
Another
best practice on another day. But it's interesting. We've been running a pilot since August last year. I won't ruin it next time. Sorry, I apologise. We've been running a pilot since last year. And to give you some idea, it's something like, I'm going to ruin it, aren't I? 160 children of 160 kids, but one of the, and I won't go any further than this because I don't want to ruin it for next time, had some phenomenal success, and I think you're off to present it as national best practice. But the 2 biggest reasons for people leaving home is mental health and bad parenting. And I say bad parenting, I don't mean that. That's actually what they say in terms of things. So there's been phenomenal successes there in terms of that thing. But we'll save that one for another day.
Can I just say, the thing is about these children is that the school don't know they're missing because they're not there. You know, they don't go to school. They've never been to school. And it's how do you pick them up?
Can I just say that actually the local authorities do know those children aren't in school. We do know where they live, so we do make referrals to check up on them. So it isn't just down to schools to look after those children. We have a responsibility towards them as the local authorities as well. So we know them as well.
Thank you. So mindful of time, so I've got Councillor Roberts and then Pauline after, and Councillor Carr after that then. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You were absolutely right when you said this is a very exciting project. I'm really, really excited by the prospect of what this can do going forward. And I'm glad to see that you've got in the partnership, as it were, you've already started to see the value of having education. Local industry might be a good idea. These young people grow up and need and want a job. Give them a future, give them something to work towards, and they'll work towards it and become good advocates for their community. The other thing I would say is through the work with the hubs, local hubs, I like that idea because it keeps everything local to the community, sometimes quite a small part of society, and they can then, may I suggest, become part of the offering, and we can start listening to what they've got to say about these things. But full of admiration for you. I can't thank you enough. We must be your best advocates, and I'd very much like for us to go and see what you're up to and how you're doing that.
That's great, thank you. I mean, yeah, we welcome any support from the community and industry and anything that can help provide these children with opportunities and distractions from getting involved in criminality. So the more we have of that, the better for us.
If I could say, in a former life I was in industry, and I talk on a regular basis to people who cannot get enough staff. And I want them with the right attitude as well now. If we can get these young people and get the attitude changed as well, then it's going to have a great effect, a very good effect.
Thank you. I think Councillor Baker was nodding her head there. So, Pauline.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you both for that presentation. And it all sounds great, okay? And you've got, no, it does. You've got different team members involved and different organisations. But for me, sitting here and as part of this panel, my question to you is, in terms of Northamptonshire and the coverage of Northamptonshire is a diverse community, okay? And when we're talking about impacts and the difference, the case study is nice, all right? But at the same time, in terms of referral, what breakdown of referrals in terms of, have you got numbers in terms of ethnicity, in terms of, do you see what I mean? Like different needs that are coming under that. And I ask these questions because when we're talking about, Councillor Pritchard mentioned about like the magistrate courts and the Crown courts. Now, in my past life, I've worked in those environments. I've worked with young people, so I'm quite passionate about the work for young people. But at the same time, when we look at schools, a lot of exclusion are young black children, okay? And for me, I feel that when we're in this kind of foray, I want to understand how you're serving the diverse needs of community. What's the makeup of your team in terms of making sure that you can provide or call on someone to gain support and to make sure that you understand that family kind of unit and environment, okay? So that's one. Also, as a town, we've had a lot, just like everywhere else, where you've got new people moving in. So you've got new needs. What's the makeup of your team in terms of dealing with that, okay? And another nugget, just before I leave it, and then you can just jump in when you're ready, is that when I listen to the different programs that are available, like you said, yes, you've mentored that young person, which was a fantastic case study. Lately, I've been hearing from a lot of young people in Northampton. They are absolutely bored because one is that some of them think they want to get into administration. Do they exactly know what that is? Are they getting the right support? And for me, with programs like these, I think that if you've got a little like branch hanging on to it where you can develop young people through apprenticeships and kind of support and mentor them to kind of move them back out into the community, rather than we mentor them for a little bit and then they go back out. But that quick turnaround could easily, all the good work could easily change. So I think a bit like under the cadet scheme, and this is my thing where I'm talking, but I also try to find solutions. So you need to find some kind of solutions where maybe you can attach something else, whether it's another agency that runs it, but it links into the program. And it's not just like your mechanics or your this or you need something that's going to stabilize young people. So one, referrals, two, makeup of your team. And do you know what I mean? I'm happy to support wherever I can as part of this panel. And I definitely would like to come and have a sit in the team and see where, if in any way I can help. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, there's a lot of work going on in the force with the serious violence duty. We completed a strategic needs assessment looking at the makeup of all those figures that you need. I don't have them to hand, so you'll have to apologise if I can't give you the exact figures. But what we're talking about is we recognise we can't do this alone. So the Youth Violence Intervention Unit is one part of a solution to the whole society of issue. And what we're hoping with the serious violence duty is that other agencies and professionals will come on board and help us in achieving the goals that you're talking about, because we agree, you know, you get involved with a young person for a short amount of time, then you step out of their life and very quickly they can go back into that lifestyle again. So we do want that long-term support in place. We're really lucky we've got an agency who've been given some funding from the Youth Endowment Fund over the next 3 years, they're going to be providing 12-month mentorship to around 600 young people in Northamptonshire. So that's really, really good for us. In terms,
You should probably name check it.
Exodus, yeah, Upskill You. They, you know, they're really, really good, and they're going to provide, let's say, 12 months worth of mentorship to young people over the next 3 years, and that's fantastic for us.
He's underselling that, because actually they were given the money from the Youth Endowment Fund, and they are a national organisation. They chose 2 locations to do that work in terms of the test. Northamptonshire was one of them as a consequence of the great work that's actually going on in here. You know, you're very modestly, as part of police's obligations towards the serious violence duty with the observatory, and I can only commend partners across the county. Finally, my dream was always, can we share data with one another to better protect our community? The strategic needs assessment that Liam mentioned actually was complemented by the Home Office. They said, we've got violence reduction units who haven't got as a comprehensive understanding of what's going on. And it is making a difference. You know, a year ago, you had something like 500 kids that were involved in most serious violence. That's dropped by 80 on a thing. It's genuinely starting to come down. So actually, the long-term investment, early intervention, is genuinely showing an effect. And knife crime is coming down. You know, it's like 20% reduction just there in terms of involvement in it. Sorry, I cut across you.
No, that's all right.
Can I just say as well, upskills I'm aware of now, because it was only last week I think I was on a Zoom meeting with and realised later on that it was connected to Northampton, but that's in my day job. But yeah, I'm aware of their work and Exodus.
And then in terms of the makeup of the team, you're right, we need to have people who can reflect the different, you know, cultures in society. We're really lucky. We've got Junior Anderson, who's worked in the police for years. He's got really strong connections with the community and other agencies. He's helped bring in things like the Frank Bruno Foundation to provide boxing opportunities for young people. So we can always look at, you know, improving that. I don't think we could ever say we've got it exactly right, but yeah, it is something we're quite lucky at the moment. We can look to that.
Thank you. So just before we have Councillor Carr, just on Exodus, I think it's worth mentioning that work is going to be audited, so they've got a control on it, so you can actually see, you know, provable outcomes. So if you like, it's an audited process ultimately, which I think is really important, because often you'll get data come back or whatever, and people say, well, compared to what? So there is going to be a compared to what within that, which I think is really important. I'm really mindful of time today, Ken, so we're going to go to Councillor Carr, and then we shall conclude on this item. Ken, Councillor Carr, and he's the final speaker on this, because we are sticking to timings, because we've drifted rather too much, because I indulge you too much. So Councillor Carr.
Just one very simple question. Thank you again for the presentation. I found it really, really interesting. But one of the things which I'm sure is there in the background is to help those young people develop different types of friendships, because obviously the friendships have had a big impact on what they've ended up doing or behaving like or whatever like that. And obviously I noticed that you've got the Saints Foundation within that. So can you just tell me very briefly how you guide them to develop new friendships and mechanisms that you put in place? Obviously you've got the journey map that you've talked about in their past. So I'd just be interested, because I think that's obviously a very key thing for the rest of their lives.
It is. And that's why it's a particular intervention, and it's not a one-off session. It can last a number of weeks. So actually what we do is use lots of different tactics. And one thing that we use to start with, Councillor Baker, you might know this terminology, and I'll try not to use too many terminology, I'll explain it. We use something called like an eco map. So we look at who their friendships are, and then we look at whether they're healthy and why in their opinion it's healthy and why it could be unhealthy. So there's a lot of discussions that go around that, and then we start to look at actually what diversions we can use to find positive friendships, and we will link into things like the Frank Bruno Foundation. We'll give them a diversion. That's where they meet like-minded young people. We've got other people that are using gyms As a diversion, we've got 3 young boys today who are currently on a motorcycle course, so they're taking their CBT. Those 3 young people have now met each other and are starting to form a friendship because they can see the journey they're on. And we work with another organisation, Elite Survival, which is an outbound day, and we can link in. But it depends on the individual, and often people say to me, what do you do? It depends on that young person. But there's lots of diversions we use.
Thank you. I just wanted you to explain that a bit more.
And Exodus also help us with that,
Because
to change the mindset.
It's key for any young person to develop that friendship network. And as we all know, as you get into adulthood as well, to have those friends to help support you as you change and develop through the rest of your life.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. We will get a date in the diary to come and see you. I know there's lots more questions, but we are sticking to times today. So I think in the visit there'll be a lot more questions. So Winston, we'll pick up on the questions when we do the visit, because we ran out of time yesterday. So I do feel your pain. I could have spent probably all day on this, but Augusta, Liam, thank you for coming. I think we will probably draw further conclusion and questions and even work plans and all sorts of thoughts off the back of this. I think possibly the good way forward on this would be getting a date in the diary to visit, and then I think we hope we'll get some clear water for the panel in the coming months. So thank you. So we'll go to agenda item 7, and before we have the Commissioner introduce the Police, Fire and Crime Plan Delivery update, we'll just go over to James just to go over complaints procedures, etc., etc. So to you, James, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So every police and crime panel obviously has general responsibilities for scrutinising some specific functions of the Commissioner, so the production of the draft precept, for example, and also a wider ranging responsibility around reviewing or scrutinising decisions made or other actions taken by the Commissioner in connection with the discharge of the Commissioner's functions. Then, in addition to that, one of the more specific responsibilities for all panels relates to complaints about the conduct of the Commissioner. So just to touch on the sort of headline aspects of that. So any complaint about the conduct of a Commissioner must go via the relevant panel. If it's made to another place in the first instance, then it needs to be referred onwards. When a purported complaint is received, the panel or another person acting under delegated powers, so in the case of the Northamptonshire panel, the monitoring officer for the host authority is responsible for determining whether the complaint should be recorded. If it is recorded, then what's referred to as a serious complaint, one that constitutes or involves or may constitute or appears to constitute or involve the commission of a criminal offence, must be referred to the Independent Office for Police Conduct to investigate. If the complaint recorded is, it's not a great term, a non-serious complaint, then it's dealt with locally through a process of informal resolution. And members who've been involved in the complaint subcommittee or indeed are familiar with the process followed through the 6 monthly complaints and conduct matters update reports that are presented to the main panel will be aware of that. I think what I would particularly highlight from what I've just said in the current context is the point that when a complaint is received, the panel isn't in a position to act on a matter relating to the conduct of the Commissioner until a complaint is received. There is another provision in the legislation relating to what are termed conduct matters, which is defined, and a conduct matter is defined as if I could find if I had the right place in front of me, that would help. So a conduct matter is defined as a matter where there is an indication, whether from the circumstances or otherwise, that a commissioner may have committed a criminal offence. So in that case, in the case of a conduct matter, it can be recorded as such without a direct complaint. But that specifically relates to a case that appears to involve the commission of a criminal offence. Otherwise, for the panel to take action on a complaint about the conduct of the commissioner, there has to be a complaint received.
Thank you, James. So I thought it was important to get that across to the panel. I wasn't really looking to go into any sort of questions on this one, just if you've got clarification, of course.
Are we talking about item 11? Because item 11 is about conduct, clearly. So I'm just wondering whether that's something that, is that the reason James has just come through with that statement or not? Because obviously we're not on item 11, item 7.
No, it's things in light of the news and things, and I just wanted to be clear on, because there's lots of buzz going around at the moment, so I thought it was important just to get clarity for the panel. That was
absolutely.
Essentially
I'll have some points to raise later on in the meeting, but obviously I just wondered why out of the sort of the agenda sync. But I appreciate James's clarification on that. But obviously that would be more relating to item 11.
Yeah, but we'll come to that. So we're on item 7 now. So I just wanted that to we needed to get that in there. So thank you. So I'll go over to the Commissioner to introduce your report. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Before I go into the report, I just want to highlight I will also give two verbals after this. One relates, and I think they're both of significance. I want to talk about the Angelini inquiry, which obviously was related to Sarah Everard. I think it's of such significant public confidence that I ought to outline some of the stuff that's going on and gone on in Northamptonshire. As you know, both Ivan Bahachi at the time, the Deputy Chief, now the Acting Chief, and Liz Wilcox, the head of PSD, came and presented it, so I'll talk to that. And then I've also I have them to give to you, but I know you can't have it quite yet, which does have some pictures and some stuff in it, which talks about the estate's master plan. I say that not to stop anyone in terms of questions, but I've got some other bits for you. So if I may, I'll try and cover as much as I can. So this is obviously in front of you, the report today sets out in detail a comprehensive update on the police fire crime delivery programme. And obviously, the work that's been undertaken to help me deliver the priorities as set out in my police fire and crime plan. For everyone and any aspiring one, something a commissioner needs to set out coming into office within 12 months. The report is wide-ranging. It reflects the breadth of the work, not just on police and fire, but also through some of the innovative work that you've seen on preventing young people from heading down the wrong path, which obviously then keeps our community safe and supports victims of crime. So dealing with policing, I want to be clear, Northamptonshire is safer. We have more police officers in the county than ever before. Importantly, these officers are working where it really matters, in neighbourhoods, on the most important county-wide policing challenges. Our police officers are not sitting in head office or running programmes that are best managed by specialists. Due to the innovative way that we have reformed and combined our enabling services for police and fire, we have driven up efficiency and professionalism for all. And of course, the latest Peel shows how far we've actually come. I'm pleased to see that since the last inspection, the force has improved its performance in 6 of the 9 areas of work measured by the inspectorate, and that it's outstanding in the way it records crime. This helps to ensure that victims of crime receive the service they deserve and expect. Where there are areas of improvement, I'm pleased that we've been able to invest. So on crime investigation, we've already committed nearly £600,000 for further training of development of police officers in the coming year. You've heard me talk previously about actually the youth, some 60% of our police officers have been here with us for under 10 years. So that training investment is vital, as the major increase in the number of police officers that I mentioned earlier, we have those that are newer in service. In addition to this, a further 800,000 will go into the force control room to help meet the growing demand in emergency calls from the public and deliver on those inspection findings. I want to put on record my thanks to all our police officers and staff. We can proud that Northamptonshire is now seen as innovative and forward-thinking force that can meet the needs of a growing county. Crime. Our strong standing nationally also brings opportunity. I'm proud of the track record of bringing in new government investment, from the safer streets to antisocial behaviour and hotspots, immediate justice to the violence reduction, that we brought in new money. I think we're the best part of the other side of over 17 million going towards 18. I'm sure Vaughan will know the exact one. 3 million of new funding is also helping us to crack down on antisocial behaviour, drug taking, criminal damage, public nuisance, shoplifting and dealing with drunk and disorderly people. As panel members will be aware, it's not just HMI CFRS who are recognising the excellent work being delivered and the positive impact it's having on our county. My office recently won the National Public, the Cyber Awards, this terminology to get through, isn't it? For our pioneering work. The work of the Cyber Security Forum is helping to protect local businesses and make our county safer in which to do business. The National Police Chiefs Council also recognise our success for making Spaces Safer award to the joint efforts of my team and the force in making areas of the county, particularly for women at night. Key to this was Operation Kayak, an initiative I funded to keep the people safe on weekend nights out, which has now been adopted as a core operational activity. The award also acknowledged the effectiveness of the snow vans, which provide a safe haven for anyone who needs support while on an evening out, as well as technological innovations from office, by such as the rollout of the Flare app and the implementation of the ID scan technology at late night venues on all late night venues across the county. These achievements have been made possible through repeated successful bids from funding from the Safer Streets Fund. Thanks to the work of my office, Northamptonshire has been awarded nearly £5 million in crime prevention. This has meant we've been able to deliver a number of crime reduction schemes across the county. 120 council-monitored high-definition CCTV cameras, 5,000 homes with over £100 worth of free security, 155 alley gates protecting residents from burglary, robbery, antisocial behaviour, fly tipping and rubbish, 1,600 front and back doors replaced. In addition to this, 1.3 million has been awarded to help implement innovative crime prevention measures in the main nighttime economies and nearby public spaces to keep women and girls safer. This has helped us deliver some innovative and transformative work, including the Flare app, which I mentioned earlier, 600 officers trained in policing the nighttime economy, 30 ID scans, 2 safer nights out bus, 5,000 packs, 8 help points. On from policing to the fire and rescue service. So many of the examples in the paper we've seen have demonstrated the importance of collaborative working. This extends is how Northamptonshire has led the way in terms of overseeing and driving improvements in our fire and rescue service. As you'll see from the report today, thanks to the financial stability and investment I've brought to the fire and rescue service, the benefits are now being felt on the front line. Not only have we been able to increase the number of whole-time firefighters from 242 to 254, but the service is now benefiting from a major £10 million investment programme of capital investment. This has transformed the service, giving firefighters modern equipment, modern services and modern ways of working. This includes 8 next-generation fire engines now based at stations across the county, with a further 4 to be delivered. A new 42-metre turntable ladder, improving the service's ability to deal with incidents not just at high-rise but large commercial premises. In fire, as in policing, we're leading the way in gaining recognition. Our reputation with national government is very strong, whether with the Home Office strategy and finance teams who regularly see my advice, with the Cross-Government Joint Emergency Services Interoperability Programme, JESSUP, where Northamptonshire leads the way nationally. The Fire and Rescue's Home Safety and Safeguarding team recently received the Prevention of the Year award, with almost 6,000 home safety visits being carried out by crews and prevention teams over the last 12 months, protecting vulnerable residents. However, having been underfunded and undervalued, our fire and rescue services have been on a journey of improvement, and I'd like to publicly thank the officers and staff of the service who have worked with me and my team to drive changes that are making a difference to our fire professionals for the community at large. Summing up, Mr Chairman, today's report not only provides you an update of the work that's been delivered by my office, but also demonstrates the importance of collaboration and the benefits it's brought to the county. I think it's worth just ending on one. Our vital public safety services are stronger than ever. Public safety in this county is fighting fit and facing the future with confidence.
Thank you for that. Any points relating to this update? So we're here to obviously scrutinise the Commissioner. We're not going to be scrutinising the police and fire rescue performance here. So I think Andre looks like the first one who's teed up.
No, nothing at this moment. Thank you.
Councillor Roberts.
Yeah, the work that's being done on training as part of this whole thing, could you just touch on how you are staying relevant to every member of the community, across the community?
One of the things that, and I'm going to answer this in two ways. One of the things is we've put a positive action team. So on the basis of recruitment, we've gone out of our way to make sure that we are absolutely trying to make sure Northamptonshire Police is reflective of the society it serves. So they've been doing some very positive outreach. Funny enough, I was actually at an event quite recently who were actually competing because evidently West Midlands was sending theirs down here to see if they could, if you like, steal from our diverse communities, which I think is a compliment to ours. But actually, in terms of being relevant, there's several parts of that. Technology has an increasingly important play. So actually it's not just in terms of diversity of people, also neurodiversity plays an important part in our recruitment. So we're looking across quite a wide scan in terms of recruitment. And I think actually we're in quite good shape there by having, like I said, getting upwards of 60% being here under 10 years. They are phenomenally technologically literate, but actually one of the real main focuses here is to make sure that we drive up investigative standards. At the end of the day, no one wants to call the police. You want to make sure that when they come, they'll respond and people get a good service. So actually there's been an end-to-end review to make sure that we do that, because I think it wasn't that long ago. I mean, when I started, there was 1,219 police officers. Now we're well over 1,500. That's been a seismic move for the organisation. So, you know, for those who've ever visited Wootton Hall, you probably notice as you go in on the left-hand side, there's some very shoddy-looking porter cabins. That used to be the home of our training. And I think we're offering lots of visits today. We built and equipped a building in Western Fayville to make sure that we could train and develop with appropriate classrooms and all of those. Because one of the keys for us is to make sure that not only we recruit, but actually we retain. And actually, and the way you retain is making sure that you invest in your people to make sure they feel the benefit and they stay with us. If anything, and there used to be some challenges with the Met kind of recruiting and kind of drawing down. If anything, I would say, given some of the challenges the Met has had, it's not. But because we've been able to over-recruit, we've actually just this year alone, I think, is it 480 or 460,000 extra? You keep telling me how much I can't spend it. I was going to say, I think I spent it twice the other day. Yeah, 480. So actually, it's making sure that there are penalties if you don't retain staff as well, in terms of it's built in the grant. So actually making sure that we do it. But probably a visit to the team would probably be quite useful to give you some insight on some of that.
That's over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Well, we can certainly do that, can't we? So I've got list of speakers. So Strachan, Maxwell, and then Councillor Mercer. So Councillor Strachan.
Thank you, Chairman. Through Chair, Commissioner, this is to do with the fire service. You talked about on 2.1 when you made reference to the fire service college. Could you tell us where that college is placed? And also you talked about the hydrant inspectors. We got 15,000 hydrants, so do you think that the 2 inspectors is adequate to be inspected those over what 12-month period? Also, we also talked about the new fire engines. Could you let us know how much each of those engines cost? Because I understand they're pretty expensive, over 100,000 pounds. And also the high reach, because those are important things. Those are new stuff to the service.
You're absolutely right. I'm gonna defer to Vaughan in a minute. He's busy giving you the exact amount, but I'm going to start with the if you like the 42 metre platform. That's best part of £750,000. On average, a fire engine, I think you'll find, is a base cost of something like £250,000, and he's going to get me an exact one. But then by the time you add all the kind of equipment, you're getting upwards of another 100,000 kind of plus on top. We want to continue with that programme to make sure that we genuinely maintain, because I think as we talked about before, when the fleet came over from the county, and like I said, I don't blame the county with the financial challenge it had got. You know, I think our youngest fire engine was something like 14 or 15 years old. The fire college is an interesting one. I haven't jumped to the page that you made. Have I gone off?
Yeah, 2.1.
Oh yeah.
17.
Let me make sure I get the right reference, because essentially I think is that where we're sending our. So there are there's 2 things. One is the both the combination of the national reports recommend there be the creation of if you like, I'm going to call it a college of fire. And that's a drawing up in terms of leadership standards. There is quite a debate going on as we speak, whether that should be attached with the College of Policing, whether it should be set, because there are some commonality in terms of leadership. But the actual physical of putting out fires, as you might even have you been to Morton in the Marsh at some point?
I went to the training unit at
Charleston, yeah, okay.
And recently I visited the station at
Mearway.
I went into one of the new engines.
Do you want to pop your microphone on?
He's very proud of it.
Councillor Strachan, do you want to pop your microphone on?
Sorry.
Sorry. Am I on or? Yeah, sorry. Yes. No, I visited the station recently.
Yeah.
And together with a few other colleagues, looking at the other things to do with the culture at the moment, the service. But we were very lucky to be shown around by some of the firefighters, and we did inspect one of the new engines. And we also met some new recruits as well. They were in the papers recently, but we met, I think it was 10 of them, 2 women and about 8 men.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was very interesting. We're very pleased.
And I can only thank you for you took the time with a few others to visit Mearway and help us with some very helpful advice on the diversity and recruitment. So I personally wanted to thank you there. On the hydrants, actually we didn't have enough at one point. We were working on two, but actually there's something of a national problem. It's one we're kind of keeping an eye on to make sure that you're dead right, particularly with the deluge of new housing. Are we certain where they are? There's also been some challenges. There's been a national problem in terms of some of these being handed over. Are they unfit for purpose? So it's a very much an active area that we're looking at very carefully.
So Councillor Maxwell.
I think you're going to answer it properly. Not properly, but
go on.
In terms of the cost of the appliances, base cost, as Stephen says, is about 250,000. When you add on all of the extras and the kit, it comes to about 375. And the aerial appliance was about 450,000.
Thank you.
Thank you. Some people in the room will remember buying BMWs, and you would have a base price, and by the time you got a decent car, it was twice the price. So it seems fire engines are the same. So, Councillor Maxwell.
I'd like to ask, have you actually put up more AMPR cameras to start off with? And if you have, what aspects are they stopping car thefts? And number two, I'd like to speak to you about the emergency phone calls after that.
I'll try and do one or the other. Yes, so when I say this slightly tongue-in-cheek, when I came into office, you can imagine I had a good look at the bank accounts, and I found this bank account with about £1.6 million in it. And I said, why haven't you spent that? And I said, because it's been built up over a very, very long period of time. And what happened is there's a small management charge that's being able to charge for the administration of a road safety, what's course? I can't think of the NDORS. So what we did is we decided, and they were like, well, we don't want to spend that because we're, someone might challenge us for it. Well, if we don't spend it, someone will, won't they? So we actually spent £1.3 million on doubling the number of AMPR cameras. What we tried to do there is to make sure we have something of a ring of steel around the county. So in other words, if you're going on a major road in or out, then we know about it. And that's had quite a seismic effect. So there obviously are in there. I think something, and I haven't got the numbers in front of me, but actually I know that something like getting on for 2,000 cars taken off the road, something like 900 arrests. They're really powerful in terms of real-time intelligence, but they also come with some quite important thing afterwards. I genuinely believe if we'd have had that capability, I think if some of you may have remembered the murdering of sheep in Daventry, that highlighted the fact that Daventry was particularly devoid of cameras. I believe if we'd have had that capability, then we'd. But actually, it's interesting. The combination of AMPR and those new police officers resulted us in the largest seizure of drugs that Northamptonshire has ever seen. Some £70 million with a £210 million value. I do remember not sleeping very well as we knew where it was and was very glad to see it leave the county because it was a large amount. I think you had another question or a subpart.
My question was, you actually spent more money on the emergency call system in your county.
Could you give me the page so I'm...
Just hold on, I'm looking at it myself actually.
That's
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm not sure where I actually saw it now. But anyway, you have. And so, which will obviously help residents, because one of the issues is that when a resident phones up, with a police issue, that sometimes it takes a while to actually get through, and then when they leave a message, coming back. So is this, do you feel that's been an improvement in
Absolutely. I do remember when I first started and I would go to a public meeting, the 101 Times filled up my postbag, quite frankly. Now, 101 and 99 are intrinsically linked. We put them in the same place. What this investment this year is to make sure that we build on it. We also built in other ways to report. And also in some of the investment from this year's precept will also be able for the police to respond on social media more easily. We will continue to keep under review where some of those things are. We're also looking at some of the other investments that are in there. So we saw we had a retail crime summit to make sure that also if we've got an identified perpetrators in the county, that we're passing them through PNC, PND and using retrospective facial recognition much more to make sure that we can do that. But on the final question I think you had in there was around car crime. Car crime is genuinely coming down nicely because you're right, we can track. But it's not just car, it's also, you know, I think we returned the other day something like 40, not in one go, caravans that have been stolen in the county.
It also actually tracks down people who aren't insured as well, driving cars.
There is an awful lot of those cars that it takes off the road. I mean, going to the wider question of safety in the county, and I don't want this to be misinterpreted. You know, a murder is a true thing, but you're 5 times the big risk in this county is actually on the roads. You know, we have nearly 50 people tragically die every year, and thankfully our murder rate tends to be in single figures. I mean, ironically, I just had an exception report from the Home Office. I never knew you could get a positive exception report that basically said your murder rate in Northamptonshire is exception. It's too. I don't think they meant too low, but that was actually what the data was saying relative to the baseline in terms of our population.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got Councillor Mercer, Pritchard, Baker, and I'm mindful of timing, so I'm trying to keep it on track, but and Pauline as well. So Councillor Mercer.
Thank you, Chair. Every paragraph really seems to, be a big news story. It's a shame, really. It's just a couple of lines on a, report like this. I think, each of those, I'm sure, will make a really, big headline or possibly put these things in your newsletter, because I think members of the public really need to know about a lot of these things. But the one I wanted to highlight in particular was 2.8, increasing frontline visibility, with an extra 3 million having been awarded to the county over the last 2 years for a crackdown on antisocial behaviour, because I think, first of all, it's the thing that the councillor's mailbox is usually filled up with, and it's a real concern to people around the county. In particular, we have a lot of problems in my hometown of Rushton, and thankfully we've now, with yourselves, organised a PSPO, which is a Public Space Protection Order, and I'm hopeful that this extra policing visibility will help to eradicate some of that. Obviously, I know you can't sort of direct, the operations to that, but that should allow, and I know that the police are working very closely with the local authority as well and having joint enforcement. So, I really welcome this move, and hope that it produces lots of positive effects around the whole county.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think I want to reiterate the point, both Northamptonshire Police, Northamptonshire Fire Rescue. Nobody is perfect. I know that I'm not perfect, as I seem to have demonstrated brilliantly lately. The Northamptonshire Police genuinely has been on a very good trajectory since 2016. Largest budgets ever got, largest number of police officers ever, something like 200 more than it had in 2010 as well. It was great to work with the council on the PSPO over there, because you're right, in terms of forgive the language, but actually the inappropriateness of some of the urinating in streets and stuff like that you wouldn't think you need to enforce do. And so actually you mentioned there the antisocial behaviour. We bid for nearly the best part of £1 million for hotspot patrols. We're looking forward to working with the councils. So that just won't be police overtimes. It will also be invested with street wardens employed by the council to make sure that you've actually kind of got that visible presence there, not just a policing one. So we're working both on the north and the west there. And of course that nicely dovetails into the £1 million a year over 2 years that we've got for immediate justice. So if anyone's found to be, I'm going to say errant behaviour, if I can put it that way, then they can go on an immediate justice, which means they can tidy up whatever mess or paint fences or something like that. I think tomorrow out we're actually cleaning up some stuff here in Northampton, and that is all additional and on top. And that's, of course, on top of the fact that we've tripled the number of police officers in neighbourhood policing with plans to go further.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Peel report specifically states that immediate work has to be done to improve crime investigation. Victims of crime really want to see the results of crime investigation. I appreciate that you've actually allocated 590,000 to improve training, but what does that really mean to residents? Because obviously once someone has been subjected to crime, they want to know that the perpetrators will in fact be brought to account.
You won't be surprised to know that this is a hot topic for all of us, quite frankly, and we had a very robust conversation with the force at accountability exactly on this particular point. It is worth me just, I'm being pedantry here. I am not the Chief Constable. In other words, in terms of the operational, I said holding to account and some very firm nudges and providing investment in there. HMIC is always difficult because it's also, I'm not here to defend it, but it's also, it has some inconsistencies. And what do I mean by that? So Northamptonshire Police is top in the country for compliance with Director General's case files. What does that mean? That means the quality of the case files that they're actually handing over to the CPS is the closest in guide, and something, I think we're 93 or 94%. Why does that matter? It means that we're in the top 5 in the country for guilty pleas at first hearing. We know there's some real challenges in terms of that. Our positive outcome rate puts us in the top 5 in the country. As far as I'm concerned, it's still too low. But what they're saying is it's particularly some of the timing, the process, all of those. There are absolutely processes in place, and I will be monitoring the force very carefully to make sure that they deliver it. I am also very worried about, I hate this word, victim attrition. At the moment, because of the delays in our criminal justice system, we've actually got some people who are kind of going, no thank you. And some of the worst kind, I know of one not so long ago that was literally a rape that was actually delayed on more than one occasion. Now, that's abhorrent, really, isn't it? That you actually, that's kind of re-traumatising someone when they've kind of got to gear up to kind of go, and then it doesn't happen. So I just want to kind of reassure you, we're on it. I think the force feels that slightly it's unjust. I actually think we feel that HMIC is closer to the mark, which is why we've are supporting with the training and development. But there's a lot of other stuff that kind of goes on behind that.
Could I also have your assurances that any of the additional training will actually cover some of the rural areas, not just the urban areas?
I promise you it's covering all areas.
So, Councillor Baker.
I'm just, in this report at 219, you've got a youth project, I just wondered whether there was any working together with the group that we met earlier, because obviously we're all focused on early help and early intervention and stopping things happening before they happen. So do the two groups ever work together or exchange conversations about people that, I'm presuming these are school-based visits?
Sorry, that is over. The first answer is yes. Essentially, they all report. So the ACTS team works very closely with your teams, if I can put it that way, but also in conjunction with schools. But the whole idea with the youth team is that their outreach. It's actually they're deliberately trying to reach those ones that probably aren't in education, going out into communities to meet them. Doesn't mean they don't do work there, but their focus is in there, and it's very joined up. I was only talking, and David was there with Liam and Augusta. Actually, some of the reason for actually making sure that you might not have noticed it. Serve used to work with broadly 13 through to 23. There's been a significant shift in terms of younger. So actually now they only deal with up to 17. So we've got the, if you like, Augusta's teams dealing with the 13 to 17. And then we're working with the PCSOs on the 8. That's how we're needing to go. Needing to go in primary schools and work with those. But in fairness, the real good thing about the serious violence strategy and the joint working is that actually we all got to do better. We're doing some really good work, but we all need to do even better on it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Pauline.
Thank you, Chair. So we've sat and we've spoken about the Peel report, but we also know that the fire service also had a review on what was said about the fire service. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that when I'm talking about in the report. If we look at page 18, protect and support those who are vulnerable. So I want to start with that by looking at that paragraph, and then if we go to about page 36, I think, in the report, and page 40, if I remember rightly, the report...
I'm slightly nervous that yours goes to water. I got page 25 at the end.
Okay.
I'm slightly nervous about
Right, so I'm probably jumping ahead because it intertwines into each other, intertwine. But I want to talk about domestic violence. And in terms of, I guess, providing some kind of public assurance, one, about in terms of the Peel report and in terms of the report and the feedback that was given by HMRC, on the fire service, when we're talking about behaviours which are misogynistic, sexist, those kind of things. So I want to talk about those from one, an employee officers and employees' point of view across both services, and then from a public expectations point of view in terms of domestic violence and the fact that it's been reported that it's gone down, but at the same time, in the next breath, I think the Sunflower Centre is saying they've had the most referrals, and whilst those referrals aren't repeated victims, they are new victims, so are the services, and is public money being spent in the right way? Because provide some assurance that it's not a sticking plaster point of view that we're kind of using public money on. And from the staff members' point of view across both organisations, in terms of the review that was carried out, I want to understand what work and how finances are supporting those two organisations' employees.
Wow, Pauline, that is a question.
Yep. Sorry.
I shall do my best. If I can try and deal with the fire service, HMIC FRS is actually in to inspect the fire service from next week. So we will get a situation and a better understanding, and that report, I believe, is due out in the summer. I think you were there for the really good work that the service is doing on its Serving with Pride, and in terms of that's both listening, communicating, and then feeding back. And actually, you know what? There's good progress in that area. It is possible for DA to be going down, but Sunflower deals with high risk. So the overall, I think what the implication of that is, and I haven't got the numbers, so don't misquote me, is that high risk potentially is going up, but the overall number is going down. That isn't a good combination to be. One of the things we have got is we've got IDVA capability that we've built into the police to make sure that we're actually doing. We will also be rolling out. It's taken a little time to get this one away, but there has been the ability to video report. Has been trialled in other places in the country. And why has that been important? That means one of the problems. Domestic violence and DA is potentially a very complex situation because as people know, people are being abused by someone quite often they care about and or love, and so actually there's a real issue in terms of, I mentioned the criminal justice and some of the discontinuation, which is also why I probably overinvest in our support from a victim's point of view. Some of my colleagues around the country kind of have the bare minimum. I don't want anyone to be a victim, but if they are, I want to make sure they get a premium service. So as part of it though, we have felt for some time that the whole offering here in Northamptonshire is not as good as it should be. So in conjunction, and the report I think is coming to us next week or the week after, Northamptonshire Police has done an end-to-end review about what it can do better, and then we are also having a look at that in the same sense with partners. But you will note from the serious violence strategy, and you'll probably see if you look at some of the stuff, DA is really half of it. And as you know, I get asked a lot about visibility and all stuff. The one that genuinely keeps me awake at night is hidden crime, and that's when I say hidden, it's not hidden, but what goes on behind closed doors, and that is where we are in terms of DV. So I can assure you that good progress is being made. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm content with it. Otherwise, I'm waiting to see. And like I said, it was at accountability. Actually, it was only yesterday. It was earlier in the week, Tuesday. To actually we want to see in terms of what they report. But because I haven't seen it, Force needs to do its work. I might be more assured. I have a reasonable level of insurance, but I'm not content yet.
Can I have a follow-up question, please? I think for me, I wanted to understand why is it that it's the increase in terms of referrals being made is moved away from repeated DV, and you've now got new referrals. So are perpetrators then actually, are those programs working, or are they just leaving those old relationships and picking up? I mean, clearly you can't understand that, but what I'm trying to get is a flavour of how and what work's going on in terms of seriously kind of looking at this when we're talking about spending public money.
As I said earlier on, DV is a complex. Trying to deal with the two parts of I think of your question, so if I don't answer them, feel free to correct me. One of the things that I was very unhappy with the Force is actually its disclosure. So actually under Clare's Law and people moving on in terms of new relationships, that was an area it was clearly underperforming on, and is now is much more compliant, but not optimum, but that's why the end-to-end. The bit I suppose I can reassure you, I think if you look in the report, the actual repeat number is broadly a third of all offences. So 2/3, you take that whatever way you want. A third offences repeat. Now that's down around 5 or 6% in terms of thing. So that's good. We have, you mentioned perpetrator programme, so Project Pippa. We actually got permission from the and his name's gone out of my head, from the Director General to actually allow us to do some of those. So in other words, what they are is conditional cautions, and they've had really good effect, but they are also still relatively small. But it comes with challenges, doesn't it? I mean, one of the immediate justice ones I mentioned earlier, the kind of more you do, we actually had a particular instance where there was some domestic violence. The lady didn't want to press on going further with it, and I say thankfully that person was found to have cannabis on them, so they were put on IJ, which actually meant that they were able to have in terms of conversation. So some things happened. Is that perfect? No. But the other one, and I've actually, one of the most difficult things I've found as a commissioner to kind of accept, particularly around rape, you know, really quite rightly angers me that people want, but actually that women should choose for themselves. So through voice, they might not want to go to court. They might not want to be re-traumatised. They want to do that. And there are some bits that I want to talk about when we talk about the Angelini, which I'll probably run out of time in a minute because I want to give you some pictures as well in a second, about what we're doing for that sort of stuff from a policing point of view.
Thank you. I think you touched on disclosure, and I think maybe that's got a lot to do with it in terms of new people moving away from old relationships, forming new ones. So I hear you on that. But also, what work's going on across both services? Can you just give us just a quick update? I say this because I know we're not coming on to the finance bit of the report, but I also read that bit of the report and see that there's an underspend in that area, and it worries me that it's an area that is seriously growing and seriously needs addressing. And we talk about violence against women and girls and supporting perpetrators of those things, whether it be male or female, but actually it seems to be growing. It's like they're moving from one point to the other without, I don't know.
If I can I leave the budget bit to Vaughan on that one, at that particular point? I think the other bit I will just reassure you, and I don't know the specific reason, and I'm happy if you don't know, we'll come back to you outside of this. We have attracted a lot of extra money for, we put a lot of extra money for DV in the county. So sometimes it might not be, it might be we've got other programmes that have picked up slack under it. That may be the case, it might not, but we'll try and dig under that one for you in a second. I did tell my thing, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Andre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that the Commissioner was going to talk to us about the Angelini inquiry, so I'd welcome that to come through. But beforehand, I'd just like to ask questions in reference to the performance report and page 12 of that particular report, which is page 38 in our papers, in terms of the fire priority commentary and the indications about the prohibition notices, which seem to be on the high side, particularly for quarter 3. I'd like to know what types of properties do they involve and where is the highest risk effectively in the danger to us. I'm also quite astonished, Mr. Chairman, that we don't have the chiefs of both police and fire here to support, because these are quite operational questions that are coming out effectively, and I know that most of us do have those questions and we'd actually ask for the opportunity to discuss those, but I'd appreciate if the Commissioner is able to answer that. That'd be helpful, because it clearly is a very important part of our community to keep ourselves safer. Thank you.
You give me out there. To be honest with you, we have invested in the enforcement area in terms of additional capability for that reason. You're right, it's an operation. I don't have the numbers in front of me. We have said we will make for briefings available the chiefs, but also outside, so they can be open with and be. I'm not saying they wouldn't be honest in public, but you can have more detailed conversation, have more time, which I believe we have scheduled. If we haven't, we will go away and do that. And I look forward to you asking that question at that time.
Thank you. Mr Chairman, just to follow up, obviously we would like to ask those questions in public, and we would like to inform people, obviously through the panel, quite clearly when we have papers produced as to what those answers are. So it would be very much a welcomed perspective to be welcoming the two chiefs here. Thank you.
Not much to add to that, really. Yes, that's absolutely. I'm very mindful.
I just come in on that point?
Just before you do, Johnny. So we've got another meeting in this room, not one of ours, at 6 o'clock. So we've got to, whilst I don't want to get unpleasant pace, I think we need to be mindful of the timings. I think we've needed to I'm bumbling now and wasting time, but we've got a lot of questions. We've not been able to conduct the panel meetings as thoroughly as we might wanted to for all sorts of reasons this past many months. So if we get some pace in it, I'd really appreciate it. But apologies for me for asking that. But anyway,
thanks. I'll be very swift. And also, I think our expectation is that we're finishing at 4:30 rather than 6. But let's see how we go. So on that point about operational perspectives, just to be a boring monitoring officer and restate the fact that the Commissioner holds the chiefs to account, and that isn't the role of the panel. However, we're very keen to bring operational perspectives to bear, which is why we brought in today Augusta and Liam to bring that sort of Commissioner's office and police joint working piece to life. But yes, I would just guard against the expectation that the chiefs will come as standard, because that certainly isn't our intention.
The sentiment on that is that we've just not seen. There's not been the prominence or visibility. So, but I appreciate absolutely where you're coming from, Johnny. So, thank you for that. We're going to move directly on to agenda item 8. Is the microphone working?
No, hopefully you weren't going to go to 8. You were going to let me finish 7 with my 2 supplementaries, if that was all right.
Okay, so I hope you can speak fast.
I'll do my best. So quickly, obviously, a serious thing. I just wanted to reassure the panel and the public, given the Angelini inquiry in Sarah Everard and what had gone on in Metropolitan Police. The first thing I kind of want to just remind everyone that everybody in Northamptonshire Police is vetted, with no exception. It is also worth highlighting that if you are a senior officer in Northamptonshire, you are not vetted by I was going to say that you do get management. In addition to that, you are the DV vetting, which is actually done by the Cabinet Office, extortionately expensive, about 10 grand top, and they can do every aspect of your personal life. I just want to make sure that was out there. Like I said, Ivan and Liz came, and I will canter through this. So we're making some changes. So first of all, to reassure you, some of the things about it, there were some bits around missed opportunities. We'll talk about PSD, conduct, character checks, voice, and we'll quickly canter through them. So, missed opportunity to investigate officers has been addressed. So, a review of 3 years of misconduct cases, crime allegations are completed. Were any opportunities missed or risks identified, this has been addressed through the bringing of proceedings, review of status settings, and risk of management measures being implemented as appropriate. In addition to, some of you know, when the tragedy of Sarah Everard came out, we took the decision to invest extra in PSD through a conversation with myself and the then Chief Constable. We will be adding a further 8 full-time police officers to our PSD. It's now green to make sure that we're going through a robust recruitment and selection. And what that means is, because you had CID handling some, the Chief's got a view that basically, literally, all crime investigations will investigate a specialist PSD rather than officers of a different area. So it was better for victim confidence, ensures that crimes and conduct are dealt with in tandem, and basically better care. We will also be making sure increase in staff, investment in teams to investigate complaints. So the uplift to ensure that all backlogs that exist for assessing and allocating crimes are dealt with. Also, we are now doing conduct, values and character checks, so these enhanced checks beyond standard vetting, introduced to officers in high-risk areas, such as those that were identified by the Casey review. Now applied to promotion, and these resulted in greater sharing of information between PSD and line managers that manage people on a daily basis. Closer working with voice, to support those where there's police perpetrated domestic violence within the organisation, to make sure we understand the scale of it, because we actually had an instance where there seemed to be, whether it was being referred or not, every victim gets support, whether they're involved in policing or not. A new vetting manager role, so a full-time post to make sure that we're doing it, and that was a key recommendation of the Angeloni report. The PND data wash is completed with Northamptonshire with no adverse risk information shared that had not all been identified. So that should give you, in terms of some confidence. A new external line for members of the public is being launched today. It's called the Anti-Corruption Abuse Reporting System. Our internal have been reviewed, and this allows people from the public. I think you should know we have a total of 17 officers and staff on suspension within the force at this moment in time. This 17. And when you think, that sounds high, but actually in terms of when you've got best part of 2,500 people, gives you some idea. We ensure that once a criminal matter has been resolved, officers remain suspended while they deal with it. And just given the other one, review of indecent exposures. The Head of Crime and Justice has been set up a new process for all indecent exposures recorded in the last 12 months. So each crime will be reviewed by a senior investigated officer. And in terms of PIP 2. I just wanted to add those bits that it's a very serious area of work that we've taken very seriously and made those investments, but actually the senior leadership team in Northamptonshire Police takes this very, very seriously. Oh yes, and to assist us with our own confidence, the Angelini team is actually coming in to Northamptonshire Police. We were one of 8, we volunteered to have them in to actually give us, if you like, an audit. So with these things in, to give us a recommendation.
Councillor Mercer just wants to come in there.
Yes, you rattled off lots of figures and information there. I just wonder if you could send that as a document through James out to the panel, so that we've got all those.
Yes,
it might be in the minutes.
I will organise a cleaner summary than I've got, but yes, we will do that.
Thank
you.
Brilliant. Okay, so we'll move directly to the Fire and Rescue Authority Finance Update, agenda item 8. Oh, you've got another? No, come on, Stephen, we're going to run out of time.
You hand them out and I'll talk to it. Some of you know we've been
Mr.
doing...
Chairman, sorry, I had a question about the Angelini report.
Go on then.
Okay, because it was brought in, it's not necessarily something on the agenda item, but it's brought in by the Commissioner.
Please do, Andre.
I clearly think that we all take it very seriously indeed. The Angelini inquiry, the report has just been published. It's around about 370 pages, so it's something that certainly should be taken very seriously. And the Angelini inquiry quite clearly identifies those areas in our society that need to change. They are based clearly on from a police perspective, but quite clearly also on people's perspectives. And one of the areas, Mr. Chairman, that has been identified certainly within the foreword, and it's worth reading, it has to be said, it says, as long as vile behaviour and deeply abusive language are normalised and accepted as banter in policing culture and elsewhere, people like Cousins will be able to continue to commit atrocious crimes undetected. Now, it has to be said that clearly this relates to sexist and misogynistic behaviour that exists within the policing area, and it also needs to be taken very seriously, as we know, Mr. Chairman, that the Commissioner himself has been accused of that very recently, identified that at the start of today's meeting. I would like to know how staff, Mr. Chairman, within the police and fire environments take that seriously, because quite clearly if their own Commissioner himself is abusing that, it doesn't set the record very politely, and certainly it's incredibly abusive, so I don't think we can absolutely condone any of that behaviour, and I do think that the apology that we had at the start of the meeting was incredibly mild, bear in mind that many people have been insulted, and I think that the element of the individual who was insulted quite clearly by the Commissioner is absolutely atrocious. That behaviour really should be called into question, and I think that the behaviour of the Commissioner is absolutely abhorrent.
Thank you.
Johnny.
Shall I answer that question in terms of the process in the office? To some extent, I'm as the monitoring officer for the Commissioner. I'm pleased to see that we have a process in the office that's functioning when things come to light. And obviously the Commissioner made extensive comments at the start about his own contrition and the amends that he's sought to make, including to the injured party in terms of the person that was referred to, who he's made efforts to speak to. So in short, on the day in question, the 1st of March, the Commissioner contacted me and self-referred because he'd been at a visit at a fire station and made comments that he immediately regretted and knew to be a real error of judgment. I then set up a conversation for the next business day. It happened on a Friday, so that was a Monday, but I wanted to move rapidly on the same day to make arrangements to speak to the Commissioner. By the time that came about, I'd also received a couple of anonymous comments through our Speak Up mechanism, which again, pleased to see that there are systems that work and that we've staff who feel confident and empowered to challenge even those at the highest level where our behaviours fall short of their expectations. So we had a conversation. There have been statements made to the media about that, but in essence, something akin to the reflective conversations that happen in the policing sector when concerns are raised. And on the back of that, I've responded to the Speak Up system, which in turn can inform aggrieved parties, and then also flagged the results of that conversation to the Assistant Chief Officer, who was the senior operational member of staff that the Commissioner was with at the time, who relayed those to the watch in question, along with the Commissioner's apologies for the language that he used. So to some extent, I'm obviously, it's a regrettable incident, but I'm pleased to see that we have systems in place and that our staff are confident in using those systems to speak up, rather than suffering in silence or feeling that they can't issue a challenge. For my part, the Commissioner engaged with me very openly in that reflective conversation in terms of the impact of language and the handling of contact with members of staff and with the public. We also used it as an opportunity to refresh our understanding of the action plan that's been put in place earlier in the cycle by the Police and Crime Panel, and on which I know that I owe you a response letter wrapping up action against that plan, which I'll certainly undertake to do.
Mr. Chairman, I just feel it's deplorable and abusive in terms of the language that was used, and I don't think that anyone around the table here today can absolutely associate themselves and be proud about what we are doing here if we're not holding to account the Commissioner. I think that the lack of judgment by the Commissioner is really disgraceful. And it has to be said at the end of the day, that must have hurt an awful lot of people. We've just gone through International Women's Day. We have a huge amount of respect, as we know. We talk about diversity. We talk about awareness of people. We talk about the report, and the Commissioner brought in the report at the end of the day that it was not on the agenda, but he brought in the Angelina Inquiry report. It is something quite clearly is very important to all of us to ensure that within our own offices, within our own lives, that we do respect at the end of the day and use the right terms and languages. How on earth a system can cope with that insulting behaviour, I think, is appalling. The language used is dreadful, and I hope we receive a very strong apology, because I don't think that we've received sufficient today. I appreciate the Chief Executive of the OFPCC, I think, explained the systems that are in place there, and that's very helpful to understand that members of both fire and police, it was fire staff who were exposed to this, but I think it's absolutely dreadful that in this day and age we can have language used by this most senior person of the police and fire service areas here in that way. I just feel it's absolutely disgusting.
If I can just add something, I perhaps would like to consult with our democracy. Is surely this sort of situation is not the responsibility of this panel, and we should not comment on those sort of issues.
I think, as I mentioned earlier, Chair, all panels have a general responsibility to review or scrutinise decisions made or other action taken by the relevant Police and Crime Commissioner. Now, how that is, that can be interpreted in different ways in different places. Decisions made or action taken, well, are we that most usually means formal decisions taken and formal decisions made or action taken in the sense of decisions on policy by the Commissioner, for example. The panel has an additional function that is specifically related to the complaints about the conduct of the Commissioner, but that is triggered by the receipt of a complaint about conduct. And on this matter, at this point, no complaint has been made.
I'll complain. Sorry?
A complaint in writing.
I'll complain in writing.
In which case, that would be dealt with according to the appropriate processes.
Good. I'm glad to see something.
Okay, let's draw. So clearly there will be complaints coming forward.
Actually just add very, very quickly is once a complaint is received, it actually should then go to the complaint subcommittee of this.
Well, it will be dealt with as per detailed. So yes, but as has been said, I mean, I've not checked my emails. I don't know clearly no one else has today, but there's clearly huge interest in this. There's a massive discomfort, would be an understatement. So, if we may, now we're going to move on to. Excuse me, but stop.
Is now a barrier to women aspiring to come into the fire rescue service. Yes, turn off the public view. I have no concern saying this. I've said this to the press outside. These behaviours.
Well, Telly, please, if you would, well.
This is your responsibility. This is exactly what you are here for, to scrutinise the decisions and actions taken by the Police Fire Crime Commissioner.
Well, did you not just listen to what the democracy James has said? So, well.
Comments made by councillors saying should we be commenting on.
Well, thank you for your words. Please, we are trying to conduct this. Your position is very, very clear, and I am listening. I honestly am listening. But please, we are trying to conduct a panel meeting. Your thoughts. Nobody's trying to brush anything under the carpet. It's an impossibility. Please be assured. Please be assured. You've witnessed firsthand the challenges this panel has faced since August, September of last year. So we'll carry on. The complaints clearly will come forward and they will be dealt with. Thank you.
I'll be watching this panel.
Thank you. So the Commission's presented an estates master plan. This is not on the agenda. I don't believe we've had any slides shared with Democratic Services. So we are, one, the clock is ticking, and two, we can't take an agenda item, particularly if we don't have the slides provided to Democratic Services, because we do have, and I think we have a good few viewers. I'm not going to ask how many this afternoon. So it would not be right to bring this agenda item forward today.
Can I just highlight why? Why we needed to bring it forward is the timelines needed to make sure that actually planning applications are made. Obviously communication with our team and staff. It was important that we brought. I'm quite happy to take it away, have a read of it. It needed to come here so that you are aware that these things are going on. If you would indulge me for 60 seconds, I could give you a quick, and we could have a more meaningful. But I wouldn't want people to not know that these things are going in to come into your own councils as part of planning.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll give the additional 60 seconds. So please, Commissioner.
Yes, look, some of you know we've been doing a lot of work on estate over some time, both on the police and fire side. There has been some challenges, and I wanted to make sure we came up with a genuine long-term strategy that also was one that would be content whoever sits in this chair, because actually it's probably likely to actually sit over the life of multiple commissioners, hence it is. The two key takeaways from this are, and particularly we've had some questions previously about our fleet. This involves there's some questions about the disposal of the building in Elsbarton. Just to reassure you, we're on with disposing it. There is no loss on that building. We will be building a purpose-built one on the land at Derby House that will be cheaper than what would have been even in the original. At the same time as that, this opens up several opportunities. So also the Moulton site, which has on it both a fire station and also the fleet part, we will be building a new police and fire station on there to replace both the station that's on there, but also Western Fayville. Then we will be taking some of the control elements. We'll be bringing police and fire control together at Derby. And then the final piece is we'll be moving Kettering Station to a new fire station at the NAB. Take it away. Have a do it in more detail. I didn't want you not to know, and it then to come into your thing from a planning point of view.
Chair, I did ask in the past about this.
Yes. Okay, so we are finally going to move to item 8, agenda item 8. Otherwise, we will continue to, well, we'll be evicted from the room for the next meeting. So, the Fire Rescue Authority finance update. So, straight across to you, please.
Conscious of the time, I'm happy to take the report of people and welcome questions from the panel.
I'd be happy with that. So, we take the report as read, yes? So directly to, does anybody have any questions?
I have.
So, Miss Woodhouse.
Thanks, Chair. Vaughan, I think I kind of alluded to this earlier when we was talking about the budget, your spending budget, and the fact that there's been an underspent around providing
PCSOs?
Yes.
399,000.
And something around domestic violence as well. Supporting the vulnerable. Oh, okay.
Page 51.
That's the next.
Thank you. Am I jumping?
You are, yeah. So on the next item, this is fire. This is fire. So,
Yes.
Councillor Strachan, please.
Just very quickly on page 47, right at the top, we've got response retained and we've got response control. Could someone tell me what's the difference, please?
The response retained, they're the on-call firefighters. And response control is the control room call handling.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Councillor Maxwell.
Did you say me?
Yes.
Oh, right, sorry.
Shocked.
No, apologies for shocking you.
Right, on number 9, question 9, if, for instance, there was a real emergency in Northamptonshire to do with the fire, and they then found that they did not have the funding to actually deal with this, because sometimes cost means additional equipment. We don't have all the equipment, do we, that we require. Just how are we actually going to make sure that he has enough budget, they have enough budget to actually deal with an emergency in Northamptonshire? Nobody knows what might happen. You know, suddenly we're faced with something way out, which we're not used to. How are we actually going to manage it?
So as part of the budget setting process, we've got a number of contingencies in place for reactive incidents, and that's across policing and fire. And we also have a level of reserves in place that we think is adequate for the types of incidents we're going to experience. If something huge happened, then we'd have to look for government support, but that's highly unlikely.
Well, I mean, I'll give you a case in point, actually, something that happened yesterday. So the fire engine goes out to this particular instance in the Hayway. We only have one fire engine in Rushton at the moment. But the issue is, we only got, how many fire engines do we actually have?
I believe we've got 24, haven't we, Stephen?
We've actually got 28.
Yes. But they're not, they're spread around the county.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think we're equipped for this?
Oh, that's probably a question for the chief fire officer.
So this is really an opportunity.
The only thing I could probably give you some reassurance. We divide as part of some work as part of the work that we've been doing recently. We took all of the last 5 years and divided by minutes, and then some analysis was done about how much coverage you would need to cover each area. So if you like, it shows that 67% of the time a fire engine's still in the station. Literally, when you get to 10, you get to 99.91, and it goes to 99.98 at 14. And I think we've got some bits that show that we've used 18 pumps, something like once in 10 years. Yeah. But I think the key to reassure you is it's about mutual aid, and so we would bring in, we both assist. We probably give more mutual aid than we take, but it's something that we look at.
It is quite
Thank you. Shall we'll move on. Thank you for that, Councillor Maxwell. So, Councillor Pritchard.
Yeah, very, very quickly. With regards to the underspend that the fire service has done, 487k, has that affected the service of ability at all?
No, it hasn't. So we've been able to deliver against the original budget with the original plans. This simply allows us to have a little bit of money left over to put back into our reserves to make us more resilient for the future.
So where did the majority of that underspend come from?
It's almost entire. The main reason for the underspend is the variation on the business rates income. Because as you know from when we set the budget, we don't know exactly what it's going to be. And we always are on the side of caution, and I think this time we were just even more cautious than usual, so it's been quite a nice bonus for us.
I wish that could happen with domestic rates, but that's another story.
Indeed.
Andre.
Thank you, Chair. A question, Vaughan, if I may, in terms of 106 agreements, have you managed to draw down all 106 agreement funding and therefore completed that allocation that's been coming through for some years?
Well, I have a meeting about that next week, but as far as I'm aware, we've drawn down everything that we're able to at the moment, but there's lots of work going on in the background. What I'd like to do is, for a future meeting, is incorporate that into this report. It's just that the timing hasn't quite fitted, because I know Councillor Mercer brought that up last time. But I would like to give you a proper update in due course.
Okay, so any other questions? We've caught up slightly. So maybe anything else you'd like to say before we move on?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Sorry, I've got one question.
Go on, Pauline.
It's on page 44, Vaughan. You talk about underspend, which is savings from staff vacancies. What does that look like? What does it mean in terms of monetary value? Because I know we're talking about, we have a overall figure, but we don't really have a breakdown in terms of, so can you explain that? Just explain, what do you mean? What staff vacancies? Because I know you've recruited new full-time.
Yeah, so it'll be mainly in the non-firefighter world. So when we set the budget, we assume a level of turnover of staff. So within the budget this year, we've simply had more people leave and had to re-recruit than usual. So incrementally there's savings throughout, but it's kind of piecemeal. There's no big problem or a swathe of people leaving. It's just general turnover.
Yeah, I guess because of the challenges, especially in the last year or so, okay, I wanted to kind of understand the real impact in terms of breakdown. I appreciate you can't kind of look at everything and tell us every minute penny, but it's almost like I expected an overspend rather than an underspend, so it's probably a pleasant surprise in a way, but I'd like to understand.
Well, I suppose on the fire side, if you take out the business rates windfall, if we can call it that, it would be an overspend because of the amount we've had to pay for pay awards to ensure all the firefighters and the staff are paid in line with the pay award. So I don't think, so it's almost like it could be a lot worse, but we're not overall. When you take the staff on their own, they are actually overspending.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes that. So with the panel, just to note that report. Thank you. Agenda item 9, policing finance update. Over to James, we have a question from the public for the Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a question from Mr. Craig Blacker for the Commissioner. Mr. Blacker states, Mr. Mould rightly stated previously that he scrutinises the police finance and his own office to ensure the public have good value for money on their council tax. Last month, when litter picking in Wellingborough, that is Mr. Blacker, came across a letter addressed to Northamptonshire Police from a utility company stating that Northamptonshire Police was overdue payment on a utility bill. Not only was this bill not paid on time, but there was a late fee attached to it. Why are we paying late fees? If there was a robust process in place, taxpayers' money wouldn't be unnecessarily wasted on extra charges. Finally, Mr. Blacker asks, does the force need to pay £24,921 on a sports and social club officer from taxpayers' money? The main responsibilities include ensuring lottery payments are received. Are these the real reasons our council tax precept is increasing? And would Mr. Mould agree that this is wasted money that could be used to protect the public?
Okay, I'll take this if that's right. So in terms of the first question, the joint finance team, which oversees all accountancy for police and fire, have quite a clear remit to ensure that invoices are paid within the required timescales and to avoid any late charges. The invoice in question I'm aware of, and it was challenged, and as a result we found that the supplier had incorrectly charged his late fees and these were never paid, so there was no additional cost to the taxpayer for that. In relation to the second point, the Sports and Social Club post is not a budgeted post within the force or within the Commissioner's office. This is externally funded, and so there is no cost to the taxpayer for that.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to if you could like to present the updates. Again, is it Vaughan or was it Stephen?
Same standards. I'm happy to take questions on the paper.
Okay, we're happy to taking that as read, yes? Okay, so directly into questions.
Do you remember my question?
I do. So your question was about the underspends on the Commissioner's budgets, wasn't it?
Yes.
So the areas that we're seeing underspends is the same as it was when we reported last time. It's the ability to recruit the early intervention posts, and also there is a small underspend on integrated offender management. Work continues to recruit into those posts. Unless the Commissioner is going to tell me otherwise, I don't believe it's had a huge impact on ability to deliver the services or to do what that team set out to do in the first place. So we'll continue to work towards recruiting into those new posts. There were new posts, that's why it's taken a while to get them filled. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and the domestic and sexual abuse, you seem to have got an underspend under there, and I wonder why.
It's, I don't have the exact answer to that. It's only £3,000. It's not something that's really
£3,000 is £3,000.
It's £3,000. Yeah, I'd quite like to have that back.
An issue that's.
It's I believe that it's a variation on just what the people are paid, because obviously when we set the budgets for individuals and for services, we don't know exactly how contract negotiation is going to go. We don't know what scale point the individuals are going to be on. That's not been flagged to me as an issue in terms of having big gaps in the workforce or what the budget is set out to deliver.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question to Vaughan actually would be reference page 51 and the highlighted element there of the 399,000 carry forward to be transferred to reserves for PCSOs, I think in recruitment terms. I'd like to know what the neighbourhood planning or the neighbourhood policy plan is effectively, because neighbourhood policing is quite significantly important to us all in terms of visibility. And if we're carrying over 400,000, I appreciate it will be used for that, as is identified in the budget of 3.6 million in total. Can you confirm how that will be delivered in the neighbourhood, please?
Yeah, so at the moment that is earmarked for, as you're aware, for neighbourhood stuff and PCSO stuff, and we know that we're not going to spend it on anything else. The parts of that reserve that relate to police officers, as when we set the budget, that's being used to make sure that the officer numbers are maintained for as long as possible. And the same goes for PCSOs, even though there is not currently any plans to reduce the number of PCSOs or to remove any of their base budget. I think I know what you're going to say, Stephen. I'll let you.
Yeah, we were sufficiently concerned, and quite rightly, Councillor Strachan's challenged us on this. We feel the same way about it, that we need more PCSOs, but with the significant number of recruitments we're making of police officers, quite a few transferred across. So we actually had trouble maintaining numbers. What I wanted to make sure is I didn't want the I'm not saying they were trying to, that the force didn't try and use that, if you like, as a slush fund that took that money out of neighbourhoods. So we've done several things with it. If there are community projects, we've made sure it's gone back in terms of those areas. It will absolutely be spent in there. We've recently just run a significant programme. For the first time, we will actually be up to cohort in terms of PCSOs, and we have some other initiatives. We will provide a updated neighbourhood blueprint probably next week, I think. It wasn't ready for this week. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Maxwell?
Talking about PCSOs, we've lost, I think Miles has disappeared. He came and now he's not there. This is in Woodford, Great Addington, Little Addington, Deptford and Reedsted. And so he says that he's connected to Wellingborough Police Station. Are we going to have a police
So,
for
Councillor Maxwell, that again is an operational question, I think.
Is it? I'm sorry.
I think I'm just going to say, I don't know the answer, but if we could take this offline, we'll see if we can find out the answer for that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other?
I'll just say, Mr. Chairman, I think these questions are really interesting questions that obviously we all want answers to, and I appreciate that the Commissioner and the officers of the OFPCC will clearly try and find those answers and bring them to the panel. But quite clearly, the last visit we had by the most senior chief officer in the police was 2 years ago. It's absolutely atrocious, it really is, and we are now scrubbing around trying to get answers here. You know, we are trying at the very end of the day to scrutinise the work of the Commissioner, who he clearly at the end of the day delivers down through a plan to both police and fire. But if we don't have those chief officers here, how on earth can we ever get the information through? I mean, I appreciate he's just indicated to me that he'll circulate a blueprint on neighbourhood policing next week. But I mean, that to everybody in this room is something we've all heard. Will it really happen? Don't know. I really do hope it happens, and I'm sure that the officers obviously that he has employed are very keen to get on with it. But unless we have the proper people here at the meeting, how on earth can we ever get the answers timely?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maxwell.
I would like to reiterate, I'm not looking from the point of view of the police chief at the moment. What I was looking for was, do we have the actual budget to actually let this our PCSO leave the Wellingborough Police Station and come to the villages? That's what I was actually asking for.
In answer to the question, yes.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Apologies, we were chatting at the back or the front, so sorry.
And just on the topic of access to senior officers and operational leads, we held a number of briefings. We held a traffic councillors briefing the other day, which involved the Chief Fire Officer, Chief Police Officer. We've held offline panel briefings around various topics as well. So the question for me is one of correct function of this body, and it's scrutinising the Commissioner. However, bringing in operational expertise as we've done today is part of bringing that to life a little. But I thought I'd just add some colour. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you for that. That was appreciated. We do need that. Thank you. So, Councillor Strachan.
Very quickly, Chair, through you. I think it would be nice, at least every 6 months or at least every year, we have the senior police officer and the senior fire officer come along here just to say hello and tell us what he's doing and how he's doing it, or what she's doing and how she's getting on with it. I think it's only fair. Thank you very much.
I think it will find it is in the plan, isn't it? So, okay. Any more questions? If not, we will note that report. So, agenda item 10, I will invite James, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, this, in large part, is the standard report that comes to the panel, presenting the latest version of its ongoing work programme, with a view to enabling the panel to take stock, think about its priorities, and to add, amend, modify whatever the existing work programme as necessary. Clearly, this meeting is the last scheduled meeting of the panel in the current municipal year, indeed the last one before the Commissioner elections. So, in a sense, this is asking the panel to look forward more than it looks back, to identify any things in the existing work programme that it wants to highlight for its consideration by its successor. In practice, there's usually a large degree of continuity on the panel from one year to the next. But at the same time, it's absolutely right that the panel appointed for 24-25 is the panel that sets the work programme for 24-25. So that's why it's expressed in terms of this panel identifying anything it wishes to highlight to hand over to its successor. Otherwise, Chair, I hope the report is reasonably self-explanatory, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillor Baker.
Excuse me. While we're looking at conduct, I would just like to say something. The members of this panel are informed by our democratic services and our legal person when she's here, but we've all had information from Catherine Whitehead, our legal representative, on how to behave in this panel, and I take great exception to our personal credibility being shouted out in meetings like this when we are all just here trying to do the best that we can in the guidance that we have already been given. And when we're talking about safety, is it really right that people are allowed to say the things that they say about members on this panel when we are out there daily in our residential areas and having this behind us of people saying these things about us? I just want to put that on.
Thank you. Yeah, well, there's a broader, not for this meeting, but there's a broader concern around the security of elected members. So thank you for raising that. Ms. Woodhouse.
As an independent member of this panel, I would also like to say I agree with Councillor Baker, and I think sometimes it seems like we're not hearing what people are saying, but we are. But actually we've got policies and procedures and guidelines that we need to follow as panel members, and it's not up to us to kind of give immediate justice. Let's put that out there, as it were. There's a procedure to follow. Okay?
Likewise, Chairman, I was really quite unaware of this issue until I parked my car in the car park today and somebody let me know about it. And as it's not actually tabled on our agenda, whilst I have sympathy for those who have concerns and issues about it, it isn't in our agenda. We haven't received all the information about it. So, you know, we're making judgments without that information provided to us based on, and the information I was given, I hasten to add, was a message from somebody who had read something in the paper. I hadn't even read a newspaper report about it. So I have issues about how that information is transposed to me for me to come to any decision about without it being given in a full report, and whether it meets the objectives of this panel as Miss Woodhouse has just sort of outlined to us. So I look forward, if that's the case, to that report coming to us and where we move forward with things. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would like to say that the way I see this panel is that we're supposed to be going by the items on the actual agenda. If we have members of the public sitting watching what we're actually doing and then interfere, clearly that's not acceptable, and I feel that we must stick to the agenda. We must not be sidelined. We don't know nothing about what they're talking about. We have no idea. We've just come in. And I feel that we as a panel do a really good job in scrutinising this agenda. And I think it's rather sad that the residents have to actually watch what exactly is happening. So I'd hope in future that this does not happen again.
No, I think Miss Woodhouse summed it up quite well. So I've got Councillor Strachan, Mercer and Roberts to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Back to agenda item 11. My concern is... haven't we gone on to that? I thought, what was James talking about? Okay, sorry.
So Councillor Mercer?
Yeah, normally we have a monitoring officer here, and I know obviously the monitoring officer gave apologies, but I think we have had a deputy previous, so I think it would be quite really useful if we could have legal representation here just to guide us in any of these matters when they come up. So I'm going to go completely different topic now. On this work plan, we have a couple of dates where in the north we have an executive meeting in the morning at 10 o'clock. Sometimes that doesn't finish till 1 o'clock. Our normal start time is 12:30, which, as you can see, doesn't add up, especially when you've got to drive from Corby to Northampton in the middle of that. So I contacted James and said, and the chairman, and said, would it be at all possible to make certainly those couple of meetings, which is June, beg your pardon, June, and it happens to be the 13th of June and the 13th of March. I don't know why we all seem to meet on the 13th. Yeah, so I hope it's not significant that we're meeting on the 13th, those two dates, but it's the 13th of June 2024 and the 13th of March 2025. And I was just asking for your indulgence we could meet perhaps at 2 o'clock, which is what more or less has happened today, although it's 2:15 as it happened.
So, to the panel, are we okay with those changes? So obviously we can't. Thank you. Perfect.
Can you just repeat those, please, Councillor?
Well, I'm happy to this 13th of June 2024 and 13th of March 2025. But yeah, obviously we'll get March. Okay. So, sorry, James.
If there's nothing further specific...
Sorry. I probably missed the agenda 10 for 11, a misstatement for 11. We are on the work program, aren't we?
Yes.
Right. Now, I'm concerned about assaults on shop workers. This is a big issue at the moment, and I think it's something we probably should put on our program to find out more about how the Northamptonshire Police Service is handling this problem. And I hope I get support for this, because this thing is very big at the moment. It's just out of proportion the way our shop workers are being treated on a daily basis.
I think. Well, I think I'm happy. I think happy to do that. Just for sort of broader information, we've held. The Commissioner has held 2 retail roundtables around retail crime, and that did come into it, I believe. But yeah, I'm happy for us to. I think that would be a good one. There's a huge focus on retail crime. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So James. Okay. So that concludes agenda item 10. So moving to agenda item 11, complaints and conduct matters update. So we're going to James.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a monitoring report that is presented every 6 months, normally to the panel, to advise, to give an overview of complaints and conduct matters dealt with during the previous period. In this case, the report covers a shorter period than normal. It only covers December 23 to February 24. The reason for that, as outlined on the report, is to re-establish the normal sequence for 24-25. The last one of these reports covered a longer period. Therefore, if this one was presented 6 months after that, you would be out of the normal cycle into the future. So this has been presented just to cover a shorter period to re-establish the normal cycle. The report, as stated in the report, at the time of writing, there were no complaints or conduct matters about the Commissioner had been recorded, and there were no outstanding matters. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
So, Andre?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. James, I have a question from a repeat emailer to me who still has an outstanding complaint, he believes. And I think we've both been copied in on that email. I won't use his name as it's a public meeting here, but I think he has a complaint that he's lodged against the Commissioner, and one he's added to this afternoon. So if you can have a look at that, because it's over 2 months according to his email, that would be very helpful. I don't think we can go into. It's useful if you could just have a look at that and then just come back to us. Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Okay. So, sorry, James. Did you want to? No. I thought you were lining your microphone up for something. Agenda item 12, urgent business. There's no urgent business that I've got. So I think that does conclude the meeting. So just in time for us before we got evicted. So thank you for all coming.
Chairman.